This is 32-year-old Brian Chin. He is a 32-year-old Chinatown landlord who was recently facing serious felony assault charges after a homeless person decided to attack him with a piece of wood that had nails in it, and he was able to successfully defend himself against said homeless person. Now, the entire incident was captured on video. Chin was clearly acting in self-defense. However, District Attorney Alvin Bragg decided to charge him with serious felony charges, ruin 5 months of his life, and due to the fact that he was facing those criminal charges, he actually lost a teaching position that he had at Harvard because he could no longer pass the criminal background check. So essentially, this man's life was irreparably harmed for a case that obviously had no actual ability to be prosecuted, because months later, after desperately trying to nail Chin to the wall, Alvin Bragg was forced to drop the charges because the homeless man obviously was the aggressor in that situation. Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Sean, and we're going to break down this case. We're going to break down the damage involved in this particular case, and unsurprisingly, you are going to discover that the upstanding self-defender in this situation faced all of the consequences for his actions, while the criminal with a repeat criminal history was able to escape the same responsibility. But before we get into that, I will remind you that there are many victims of the California wildfires, one of which is my friend Devin Tracy, also known as AIU's parents, and he is having a GoFundMe fundraiser for them. So if you're able to donate, if you're a fan of Devin, I would really appreciate it if you did. If you can't, I completely understand. If you don't want to, I understand, and no pressure. I'm just trying to help out my friend. But without further ado, let's get into this story, which, by the way, is featured well by the New York Post. So like I said, this whole incident is captured on video, and you can actually see the homeless man in this particular situation breaking the wooden chair that was thrown out as garbage on the street in order to grab this weapon in order to confront Chin. And one of the things that you'll notice is the fact that regular ordinary New Yorkers are fleeing the scene because they know what's going on, they know who the danger is, and the danger definitely isn't Brian Chin. However, we need to go back a little bit so you can understand how this altercation occurred and what's in the charging document versus what is the reality, because it turns out that this guy, the homeless person, was a known panhandler in this particular neighborhood, and Brian Chin, being an attentive landlord, thought that he had actually OD'd on drugs, so he actually went up and approached this individual, tapped him a couple of times with his foot to see if he was still alive, and of course the homeless vagrant decided that he was going to be angry about this, and immediately that led to him thinking about getting some sort of revenge. However, if you read the charging document in this case, it's actually unbelievable what District Attorney Alvin Bragg had in there versus the reality that, again, you can see for yourself. According to Alvin Bragg's charging document, Brian Chin is an evil landlord, and we all know landlords create homeless people with their evilness, so he decided to walk up to a homeless person for no reason, again, a Harvard psychology student and teaching professional, an Asian man, and kick the homeless person brutally 3 different times. And according to this then granted the homeless person an unlimited right to self-defense, where he was able to leave the altercation, then break a chair in order to get a weapon, then return in order to fight Mr. Chin. And of course, he ended up losing the fight to Mr. Chin, so obviously, the evil landlord who was just targeting a homeless person just because he was unhoused and a victim of society needed to face serious felony criminal charges. However, when you look at the tape, when you look at what is actually in the evidence, when you hear Chin's explanation, you understand completely that he was 100% in the right. Everything he was doing was above and beyond, and he actually had a genuine heartfelt motivation, not just for the homeless vagrant that could have been dead due to an OD, but of course due to past experiences that he has had with his own tenants. Now, according to the New York Post, Chin said he's more angry than relieved because this is something that never should have happened. I was treated like a violent perpetrator in the eyes of the law, and it has been 5 months of unending waking nightmare. I woke up every day thinking I would spend years in jail when I never committed a crime. This was a case that from the very beginning should have never been brought, Chin said, adding that he had to resign from his teaching position because he could no longer pass a background check. What was this for? It upended my life, everything I spent decades working working for. Now, of course, like I said in the beginning, Chin's original motivation for checking in on this guy was the fact that he was worried that he OD'd. However, based on the crazed reaction that he got from this individual, Chin remained outside because he was worried that this guy could be violent to someone. By the way, a worry that was proven to be true. And this was also not based on nothing. You see, a previous tenant of Chin, a Korean woman who was about 25, a Rutgers student, was actually murdered in his building when she was followed up the flight of stairs by a homeless vagrant and stabbed 40 times. And unsurprisingly, that murder, the murder of one of Chin's tenants, the bloody, grisly murder of one of his tenants, was committed by a person who was homeless, who of course had a repeat violent criminal history, who didn't show up to court, that Alvin Bragg and bail reform protected time and time again until ultimately it ended up leading to the death of somebody. Again, never forget, when these people talk about the benefits of progressive prosecutors, when they talk about the benefits of laws like bail reform, what they actually mean is that the criminals, the perpetrators, the people who, like that homeless person who killed that Korean woman, never showed up to court for his previous crimes, they get unlimited chances. They get released time and time again, and then the average everyday citizen is forced to be victimized by that person, and then eventually when they kill somebody, that's when the district attorney's office sometimes takes it seriously. Now I say sometimes because if you'll recall, when a black homeless person, repeat offender, murdered an Asian man, an 86-year-old person who, by the way, was taking money out of the ATM, so he's killed over $300, the same prosecutor that actually litigated the case against Daniel Penny, another defender, decided to cut him a break because he had such a sad sack life and he was an innocent Beba Angel Aladdin who didn't do nothing wrong. And if you think I'm joking about that, there's a video clip of her saying that. I played it a lot on this channel, but it needs to be emphasized every single time we have a case like this.
So I'm going to give you an example of something that I did with a recent case of mine, and this has never been done in my office. I had a murder case where the defendant did not intentionally kill the victim. He went into an ATM on the Upper West Side and tried to rob an individual. Unfortunately, it was an older individual. He was 86. And in the course of the robbery, he fell to the ground. And as a result, he died. This is, under the law, a felony murder, which is akin to intentional murder. However, when I first got the case, I learned, I took the time to learn about the defendant. And it was a strong case, so it wasn't about a whodunit. I knew immediately who did it. I could prove it. I could take it to trial that day and win it. But it wasn't about that. It was that the more I learned about the defendant and his life and the circumstances, the kinds of things that Jarrell was talking about, that one should take into account the trauma of that individual, I really felt incredibly sorry for him that he had gotten to that point in his life where he felt like there was no other choice but to commit this robbery.
So like I said, Chin obviously had the murder of that Korean woman top of mind when he decided to make sure that this person wasn't going to do anything violent to anyone else, and you can actually read his quotes on this. Especially after the murder, if someone is acting violent, I just like to stand by the front door just to make sure that no one gets followed in and all my tenants are safe, Chin said. The homeless man did return, breaking a wooden chair and swinging the nail-leaden hunk of wood at Chin, who in turn knocked him down and punched him half a dozen times before the assailant quit. The blood gushed from the unidentified man's face as he struggled to get to his feet when the cops arrived, the complaint said, and when he tried to stand, he fell back down and slammed his head on the subway railing station. Authorities rushed him to the Bellevue Hospital with facial fractures. The complaint said he was intubated and put on a ventilator afterwards. Now, Chin says he felt awful, obviously, after this guy ended up falling and hurting himself after their encounter, and he never wanted anyone to get hurt. Now, the charges could have landed him in jail for up to 7 years, and they hung over his head until Bragg realized they had no case at all whatsoever against this individual, which was obvious from the video that was available. Now look, I do want to make something 100% clear to everybody out there in the audience. Chin definitely beat him up. If he is the man that is in this video, he 100% won this fight. It was clear, it was unambiguous, but the fact of the matter is, if you look at when Chin decided to get him on the ground and the punches that he threw, I believe that this force was totally justifiable. First and foremost, he dodged a couple of swings with that piece of wood that had a nail in it. Then, when he had his opportunity, he shoved the man to the ground. He punched him, according to the complaint, half a dozen times, but he got up. He got off of him. And even though the man was bloodied, for sure, that was not how he was seriously injured. When the police arrived, rather than seeking medical attention or trying to make sure he gets up with ease, they allowed him to get up, and then he fell back and banged his head, and that is where he got his serious injuries from the encounter. But to be clear, if you go to the New York Post article that I linked in the description, the video is at the top of that New York Post article. It will play, and you're going to see Chin beat this guy up. Let's be clear about that. I'm not hiding the ball on this. The thing that really aggravates me is the lying about the brutal kicks that started the altercation when they're clearly taps according to the same video to make sure this guy is okay, make sure he's alive. So let's get this straight. A good, upstanding man, a productive member of society, sees a homeless vagrant that is on the streets that looks like he might be dying due to a drug overdose. He decides that he's going to check on him because he's near his building, and he actually recognizes this guy as a panhandler that is often in and around his street where his building is located. He taps him a couple of times with his foot. The guy gets up, he's kind of angry, and he decides to retrieve a wooden chair, break it, and then use that to attack the person who, again, was just trying to check if he was alive. Chin, who is motivated by the fact that a homeless vagrant actually murdered one of his tenants in brutal fashion, remained outside and was concerned that other people might be negatively impacted by this person, so he ends up in a situation where he has to defend himself from this attack. He does so successfully. Again, unarmed man with fists beats armed man with a deadly weapon, and the police come to the scene of the crime, but District Attorney Alvin Bragg, after reviewing the evidence, decides not only that he's going to charge him, but he's going to lie in the indictment, claiming that the homeless guy has unlimited rights to self-defense, and that Chin tapping him with his foot was actually kicking him for no reason, or possibly because he's a landlord, and landlords hate homeless people, according to his woke ideology. The man ends up getting fired, he has to spend a ton of money on lawyers, and of course, the case eventually falls apart because there is no case. It's on video. But Bragg decided to use and abuse his power as the prosecutor to ruin this man's life, because obviously, oh my god, innocent Baba Angel homeless person, how are we going to have a society if he's not allowed to try to murder a landlord who's just thinking about his tenants that had previously been murdered, and by the way, murdered by people that Bragg also refused to prosecute prior to them doing the murder. Again, murdered by somebody who not only committed multiple crimes prior to the murder of this guy's tenant, but also didn't show up for court and never actually was held accountable for that. This is Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg to a T. This is who he is, and this is why he's absolute scum, and honestly, it is shameful, disgusting, that the voters of Manhattan voted this guy back into power. We talk about the rightward shift in the state of New York, and specifically in the state of New York City, but make no mistake about it, that rightward shift is everywhere but the borough of Manhattan, everywhere but in elections like for Alvin Bragg, and I'm sick of it. And Chin got his life ruined, completely has to rebuild. It's going to take years to do for a case that Alvin Bragg knew 100% was not going to be prosecutable. And the crazy thing about this, the maddening thing about this, is that this guy throws away perfectly adequate prosecutable cases with repeat violent offenders time and time again because he sympathizes and empathizes with those criminals, while of course he doesn't give a damn about law-abiding citizens who are put in bad situations. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think about this down in the comments below. If you like this video, then show me by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about Alvin Bragg, once again targeting an innocent self-defender. Till next time.